Hello dear viewer, I'm leesusss and welcome back to Empyrion Galactic Survival. Although it's the creative, it's not the survival. Now, before we go into this, first of all, sorry, but I've not had as much time recently to do the active building and recording at the same time. I don't always have time to do the two things together. So in this case, unfortunately, it's a bit more of a show and tell we're going to do. So I've already built the structure, obviously, it's in front of you. And I'm gonna work my way around it instead, rather than talk and build as we go. Sorry about that. Normal service will resume in the future when hopefully I have more time. So what we're gonna do this time was to build a small vehicle, an SV, and with the intent to deliver something that can do the same job as the new sub, the HV, the upgraded HV. The same jobs as that, but also, and then to decide, what's better for the case of going around Skillon and other things like that. What are we going to do? Are we going to use the sub, or are we going to use this one? What's the better choice? And there's a bit more to it than that, but we can cover a few things. We can cover about why I designed it the way I did, and a bit more about SVs. But before we do that, what's the lesson for today? We're learning a lesson something new every time about the way the game works and the controls in the game. And what's the one for today? And that is aerodynamics, which I again did not even realise was a thing in the game. It was a bit of a saving for me because I like to build weird stuff. I like to build irregular shapes. I like to build asymmetric shapes for crafts as well, and that's a bad idea because in the game there's actually a factor where if you depending on the density of the atmosphere, a flying brick will not perform as well as one with angled and sculpted surfaces. I'm not sure how the game does the calculation, but basically it's like how many flat surfaces are there. So presumably this is a flat surface, but these are not, and therefore hopefully unrounded surfaces also will behave better. And these are modular wings, but these are not modular wings. These are preset wings that you can get in the game. I think I've probably mentioned these before, but these are actually modular ones here. These are the ones where you can build different sizes and shapes, and they're already a shape like this. They're a little inflexible. They're not as good as they could be. For example, there's a very interesting end on here. This flat end on here, doesn't that look cool? It'd be lovely to fix something onto that, wouldn't it? Maybe we could do like an aerial or something. We could build something onto the end of that. Like there's loads of aerials here and things where I liked. We could put that on the end, maybe. Yeah. No, you can't. It doesn't fit. It doesn't line up properly. So they're not great, but they have some problems. But they're okay as well in other ways. I mean, for example, I fixed this Gatling onto here, and it's hard to see because of the dark colour. But there's no gap. Fixes on quite nicely. So the wings are quite good. These are presumably streamlined. But there you go. If you're going to fly things around in the atmosphere, if you build a brick, it will fly, because that's how the game mechanics works. It will lift off the ground, it will go forward and backwards and everything else, but you're going to have a harder time. If you're in space, the world's your small shellfish. You can do what you like, yeah? Build whatever shape you want to, and we will. But for now, it's good to learn that, streamline makes a difference. Okay, that's the lesson for today. So aerodynamics is a thing in the game. Now, what else is unique about this thing? This is called the Goose, by the way. This is the Goose. And we've got various aspects on here about how I built it. But first one about SVs and how you might want to build them, depending on how you're using them. As you'll notice, this one's got a door in it. And this is what is called an open cockpit. What we've done before, like with the sub and with the Hawk, it's an enclosed cockpit. Yeah? Yeah, it's all self-concealed, self-contained rather, in there. And this one, you have to go in and then you sit in the seat. There you go, in the seat, and we can fly around like this. Why would I do that? I mean, is that not much simpler? There's a few different reasons. Some of them we'll cover when we actually go to space and start doing things up there. But basically the answer is space is dangerous. And obviously it's cold, and it's cold, both cold and hot in equal measure depending on where you are. very nasty. There's no air, but you can have a spacesuit that will protect you from that. However, every time I go in and out the cockpit, you know, it kicks you out in different locations. Yeah, and you end up outside the vessel, and there's things flying around up there that want to do you mischief, and you know, you don't want some drone cruising past that will then zap you with a powerful laser and kill you probably almost instantly. So being inside your ship is the safest place to be, which doesn't happen if you have to get out, and you do have to get out occasionally. Yeah, the way that some other creators and model makers have dealt with this is like this. This beautiful beast here is not one of my creations, which you can tell because it looks nice. It's not quite as bad. This is. I'm not sure this is an individual creator or the creator of the maps, but this is gorgeous. Look at this. This is a Starhopper. This is an SV vehicle, and the way they've managed this is we must do sensors at some point. By the way, so this so our thing does the same thing. It opens up as you get close to it, but. This is the inside of the vessel in here, yeah, and there's lots of these storage bays in here and various other things. Isn't it cool and all the rest? We can turn the lights on. Let's not get distracted. But this here, where is it? Aha! This is the back of the cockpit, so you can do stuff back here in this little unit here and be very happy back here, and then you can jump straight into the cockpit. Isn't that cool? Huh? That's a good way of doing things. But unfortunately, as soon as you leave the cockpit, you're back out in the depths of space and the vacuum and all the rest of it, with all the unpleasant drones trying to eviscerate you with lasers. So this is a good idea, but you can't. Although this is very cool to be able to jump into the cockpit, and in fact some of the cockpit models have a little symbol on the back, like a bit like this, have like a little hatch as if you could go in and out, but you can't. Okay, the only way out of the cockpit is by jumping out like that. And we don't want that. So back to the goose. That is partly why we have a system like this, where we have an open cockpit and we can walk in and out, and we want to be safe in here as much as possible. This does take a bit more consideration because you have to have some clear space around the side of the cockpit, and you have to be careful about how much room you're taking up here as well with the ceiling. But there you go. So there you go. So that's one choice we've made from there. Second one is, does it fulfill its role as, you know, competing with the new sub? And in some ways, no, it does not. For example, how much space we got? Only 219. That's rubbish. But of course, that's the cargo box from there. Where's the other one? Where's my actual? I do have some container control extension in here, but only about 3,000, which is smaller than the original sub and not as good as the new one. What's the purpose of that? Well, the idea here that I was going for was, I like a bit of RP, and the idea I wanted to have was, what if we made a multi-purpose vehicle? I mean, that's the kind of the role playing I'm going with here. So what if you could have like a standard like lifting body that you would then put things onto depending on your needs at the time? And that's of course how we do it in the real world. You know, you have different models of vehicle for different purposes. If you've got some cool multi-purpose system you can use in helicopters or transport ships or whatever else. So in this case here, what we're looking at here is, I'm pretending over here that these are magnetic grapples over here, and then we can use those to load different things onto the ship. So, for example, what if our two Gatling guns and the turret on top were not quite what we needed? We need a bit more defence. Well, in that case, I'd like to present to you the Angry Goose. So what we have here is the same carcass, the same body as before, but what we've fitted on here is an expansion, like a weapon cache expansion on the back, using the rear grips from here. So now we've got an additional couple of turrets. We've got a dedicated ammo storage feeding those as well, and would be rather good. So this is more like the case where you want more firepower than the standard one. So say for example you were investigating something interesting down on the ground here, you've got close air support hovering overhead to easily take out drones using the upper cannon from here, and anything unpleasant on the ground that would want to be after your delicious insides at the same time. Defense from here as well. I also included, oh, they have not gone on there on that side. I'll have to correct that. Yeah, look, they're missing. I must have forgotten to do mirroring. Sponsons on the side over here. So for example, you could easily load something extra on here, another forward firing weapon, because there's only a couple of turrets that you can, there's only like the Gatling turret that you can put on SVs, unlike an HV. That's one of the limitations of an HV, of an SV versus an HV. You can put more turrets on HVs. On an SV, you could put more fixed firing weapons. So for example, you could load on here easily like a missile pod or something on here, like the homing rockets or the standard rockets, or maybe a railgun or something like that, and therefore give yourself more firepower on this. And you've got you're lacking armor, I guess, on here, but you could easily armor this up. It wouldn't take too much trouble to slap some armor on here as well if you thought you were going into something kind of unpleasant. But what if you are desperate, not for the firepower, but you want that carry capacity? What if you want to be able to lug loads of things around from a base you raided, or move between different areas and carry things? Well, in this case, we have the lifter version of the Goose, which is where we've used the grapples to attach this low-profile container system under here instead, and this here has a carrying capacity greater than the whole Mark II sub. So you can load more than enough material in here. What have I actually put in here on this one? On the Goose Lifter, I can't remember. 7125. Well, maybe I've reduced it slightly. I had more than that before. Anyway, included, I guess included with the main storage on here, you've got more than 10,000 storage, which is like compared to like 8,000 on the sub. You've got an angled profile on here as well, so this is not going to affect your flying ability to a great degree. And the lifters and things I've got on here, the engines are more than powerful enough to lift this up and move it around without issue. And of course you could potentially combine that with the Angry Goose, and you could easily load onto here. You could load a smaller version of the container onto the front instead of this one here. This one has built-in landing gear on the bottom from here. Let's see if we can get it to do that. Like that from there. There you go. You can see the landing nice and sturdy for landing gear from here. You probably have to put some landing gear on the back of here, underneath the weapon mounts, but apart from that you could certainly do that from there. So there you go, you've got another option. But we're missing something, which is that there's one unique feature of SVs that HVs most definitely can't do, that you really need to add into the equation. And that particular feature is warp drive. If you want to travel around within system, and you are going to be going, beyond what we've been dealing with so far, with the moons around one gas giant, you're going to need to travel a number of AU. So for example, the distance here on the bottom, the very bottom, if you look at the bottom of the screen, 14.7 AU, astronomical units. You have to use a warp drive for that, and you certainly need it to go between systems, because of course it's a big galaxy out there. Yeah, we've got to travel between different locations. Yeah, 110 light years away. You need a serious warp drive for that. Now that's a bit beyond what a small skip drive can do, like the one that's mounted in here. This whole object at the back here is the warp drive. But that's the kind of intent. You can you can jump between star systems using this. And here we've got it combined with the lifter option from here. So you could imagine something where you could do maybe not quite enough for a whole base, but you could truly transport an awful lot of material between two different planets using this. And this is probably the most likely use case for a lot of these SVs. This is usually one of the first things I do in the game. Is if I want to get around between planets, I won't have the teleporters like we've been doing in the story game version. You have to fly between planets, and you have to use something like like this. Yeah, so that's the intent here as well, and that is deliberately why I shaped the vehicle like this, with this gap at the back to allow for the fact that the possibility of having something like a warp drive or something else fitted in at the back. So there you go. That is what we have so far with the Goose. As you can see here, not a bad little unit we've got going on here. Not bad for moving around at all. Considerable more speed than we've had with the Hawk. Plus, I mean, I've obviously invested a lot more in this, but you know, it's not bad at all. I really should invest more in brakes, though. I'm not very good at actually setting up setting up brakes on it. I under deliver or on the forward firing retros to slow myself down, which is something I need to get over. You know, if you've got these great big jets on the back, you really should match that with bigger jets on the front. But there you go. So 4 variants on the Goose, and I had a lot of fun making these. It took me quite a while. It often takes many hours for me to make some of these original structures, even quite simple ones like this. But once I had it down, I'm moderately happy with this one, and you know, I enjoyed putting the different modifications on here as well. What I really would have liked to do, I had some bigger ideas about making different sorts of wings. I spent a lot of time trying to do that, and I think I hit the wall for what I could do with some of the design choices on wings. But maybe I think every time you do something and you fail, well, quote unquote fail, you still learn things, you know. And the more I play around with this vehicle and try new blocks that I've never used before, some of the ones on here you won't realise because you won't see me doing it, but some of these I've never used before, and it all adds to the experience of, you know, what it's like to build something and have different ideas and realise how different blocks work with each other. So though I failed to make the self-designed block wing that I really wanted to, I still learned a lot building these things, and I continue to learn a lot from there. So there you go. Sorry I couldn't show you the building this time, but I hope you enjoyed this little trip around my fantasy world of building a multi-purpose SV. We will use at least one of these in the future. I pretty much guarantee that, and we'll have new things from there in the future. We're not going to use this from Skillon. Okay, next episode will be me heading around Skillon in the modified sub for various reasons. I'll cover that in the episode, but I still enjoy doing this, and I think, yeah, I've had some interesting new ideas in the process. Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself, and I hope you join me again for some survival adventures next on Skillon. Look after yourself.